Let's take a look at the greatest common factor, and grouping will be the second thing that we'll be taking a look at. Get back to this. I'll clear that off. There we go. Okay. So our first problem we're going to take a look at is 9x minus 81. See if I can get my pen to work. There it goes. 9x minus 81. Now, with the greatest common factor method, number-wise, we look at, and that's what the instructions are, by the way, factor out the greatest common factor. Number-wise, we look for the largest number divides in both of those. 9 and 81, well, 9 divides into both of them. Now, when we factor that out, that basically means divide out. So 9 divided by 9 is 1. The x remains. Minus 81 divided by 9 gives us 9. Now, the 1's going to become invisible, so we're going to have 9 times x minus 9. And that's our answer. Our second example, we got 10x squared plus 25x. Well, if I look first at the numbers, I got 10 and 25. The largest number divides in both of those is 5. So 5 will come out. Now here we have an x squared and here we have an x. I can't factor out 2 x's if this one only has 1 x. This one has an x squared, this is 2 x's, this is 1 x. So the most x's I can factor out is a single one of them. It'll always be the one with the smallest exponent. This is 2, this is the invisible one, so we'll pull out 1x. If this had been a 5 here and this had been a 3, I would have factored out 3 x's. Now 10 divided by 5 is 2. We had a x squared. We took 1x away, so that leaves us a single x. I envision like you have 2 x's sitting on the table. Somebody comes up and takes one of them. You have 1 x left. 25 divided by 5 gives you 5. And that x is factored out and is gone. And that's our answer. This one we got negative 3x to the third plus 12x squared minus 9x. And we're going to have a note, and this note applies on the GCF. It says if your first term is negative, always factor out a negative. So on this problem, I noticed right away that my first term is negative, so I know a negative is going to come out. I got 3, 12, and 9. They're all divisible by 3, so 3 is going to come out. Again, I'm looking for the largest number divides into all of them. And here I have 3 x's, here I have 2 x's, and here I have 1 x. So I'll bring out a single x. Now negative 3 divided by negative 3 is a positive 1. We had 3 x's, we took 1 away, so that leaves us 2 x's. 12 divided by negative 3 is negative 4. We had 2 x's, we pulled 1 away, so that leaves us a single x. Negative 9 divided by negative 3 gives us a positive 3. We had 1 x, and it's gone. So our answer, the 1 will drop, and it'll become invisible. Our answer is negative 3x times x squared minus 4x plus 3. Now this one can actually factor down a little bit further with this, but all we're looking to do here is factor out GCF. Let's look at our fourth example. We've got 7x times 3x plus 2 plus 2 times 3x plus 2. Now this is the greatest common factor. That does not say that they have to be a number. That does not say they have to be an x to a power. You can have anything in common. In this particular problem, notice how they both have a 3x plus 2 inside of parentheses. So I'm going to take that 3x plus 2 and put it out in front. Now to decide what goes in your second set of parentheses, you basically cover these up. I'm going to just temporarily, I'll cross them out here so we can see. But in classroom, I always just cover those up with my hand or finger, or depends on how big I'm writing this. And I see that leaves us 7x plus 2 for our second set of parentheses. And that's our answer. Let's look at our fifth example. We've got 3b plus 2. And b plus 1 plus 5b plus 2 times b plus 1. Now, our first thing we notice is that they both have a b plus 1. So they already have something in common that's pretty obvious. So we can factor that b plus 1 out in front. And again, if I was in class, I'd cover up the b plus 1s to show those are now gone. And what goes in the second set of parentheses is what's left. So the 3b plus 2 plus 5b plus 2. No matter where you are in mathematics, you should always combine together like terms. Like terms where you have same variables of the same power. 3b plus 5b gives us 8b. And you should always combine numbers. 2 plus 2 gives us 4. Now after we've done that, notice that in our second set of parentheses here, these are still both divisible by 4. So I can factor a 4 out of that. 8 divided by 4 gives me 2 with a b, plus 4 divided by 4 gives me 1. Now whenever you have a number like that, usually the number is written out in front. So this would be 4 times b plus 1 times 2b plus 1. And that would be your answer. Let's take a look at some grouping problems. And let's look at our sixth example here. We got 3x plus ax minus 3y minus ay. Now with grouping, use grouping when you have 4 or more terms. Just to refresh your memory. So we have 4 more terms here. First you ask if there's a GCF. There is no GCF. With grouping, we group the first 2 terms together, and then we group the last 2 terms together. Now put a line underneath them like that, or mentally group them. Do not put parentheses up there. Usually that messes people up, because we're going to add parentheses in the next step. Now looking at only my first group, you ask yourself what the GCF is, and it's x. So I'm going to factor on x, and that leaves me 3 plus a. On my second group here, notice my first term is negative, so negative is going to come out, and they both have a y. And that's going to leave us 3 plus a. Now your goal with grouping is to get this parentheses here equal to this parentheses, which it is. So I'll factor out the 3 plus a, and that's going to leave us x minus y. Again, you kind of cross those out to see what goes in your second set of parentheses. And that's our answer. Let's look at our 7th example. We got 4a squared minus 28a minus 8a plus 56. Well, right away I notice there's a GCF. They're all divisible by 4. So I'm going to factor a 4 out. And that gives me a squared minus 7a minus 2a plus 14. Now looking at what's inside of the parentheses, this is 4 more terms, factoring by grouping. So group first 2 together, group last 2 together. The 4 doesn't change anything, but we have to keep carrying it down. Looking at my first group, they both have an a in common. So I factor out an a, and that gives me a minus 7. My second group, they're both divisible by 2, and my first term is negative. So I'll factor out a negative 2. And that gives me an a minus 7. Again, our goal was to get this parentheses equal to this parentheses, which it is. So I'll factor out an a minus 7. And if I were to cover those up, I would see I'm left with a minus 2. And that's our answer. Last problem. let's see, we got 36 x squared minus 18xy minus 4xy plus 2y squared. As I'm writing this down, I notice that they're all divisible by 2, so I can factor a 2 out, my GCF, and that gives us 18x squared minus 9xy minus 2xy plus y squared. Now what's inside the parentheses here is 4 more terms, so I think factoring by grouping. I'm going to group the first two together, and I group the last two together. Now the first two are both divisible by 9, and they both have an x. So I'll factor out a 9x. 18 divided by 9 is 2x, minus that 9 and that x is gone, and we're left with y. My second group, first term is negative, so I'll factor out a negative, and they both have a y. And that gives me 2x minus y. Well, again, this parentheses matches this, so I can factor it out. So we've got 2 times 2x minus, and if I were to cover those up, what's left is the 9x minus y. And that's our answer. And that's the end of that material also. So